Day last week. It felt like 5 days was forever, but otherwise good.
Awesome, yeah. I was glad I got 5 days off from Memorial Day weekend as well. So I was super happy about that. I needed days off. I was mentally exhausted from having my 9 to 5 and running my business. So I completely understand. So the first question I normally ask all my guests is, why do you want to get inside cybersecurity? Like, what made you make that jump?
Ooh, that is a great question. Uh, I have a bit of an odd background, which I think is the common answer for cybersecurity people. Um, I'm finding more and more people that have kind of diverse backgrounds like me. And so, for a little bit of context of why I wanted to get into cybersecurity in general, I have a degree in rehab psych. So, I was working with people with disabilities, so far from tech, so not in that realm at all. But I was working like 80 to 100-hour weeks because I was doing overnights and doing seizure watches. And so I was burned. I was burned out. Absolutely adored my job. It was probably one of the hardest things to leave because I felt like people depended on me. Small aside, I went back a few months later and they were like, "Who are you?" They were doing just fine. But I left there to go to the Apple store. A buddy of mine said, "We need empathetic people. We will teach you technology." And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I was like, are you sure? But it ended up working out. I was at the Genius Bar. I was troubleshooting technology, continuing to help people. One of my favorite stories is a man came in and he had set up an entire custom touch to speak app for his son who's nonverbal, all custom buttons for like each member of his family and like his favorite foods, and it had poof gone, and he was devastated. And I was like, "Do you think you had it this day? There was a backup." And he was like, "Yes." And so we restored it from backup. It was all there. We were all crying. So I again got to help people, and this time like through technology. And then going into IT at Zendesk, I got to help on a security incident. And we were able to, it was like fast paced, and I got to like creative problem solving. And I was a Google admin, and I was like the only one that could do it. And it was super cool. And we got to mitigate the incident. And I was like, this is what I love. I now love technology. And the fact that I get to help and protect people is the best. And that truly is why I got into cybersecurity. Just being able to help others, I think, is one of the coolest jobs in the world.
Yeah, I completely understand as well. That was one of the big reasons why I want to get inside cybersecurity as well. Just to be able to help people. So I think a lot of people know it's about me from my different episodes. Like initially, I wanted to do cooking, right? Because I like to create stuff from scratch. But I found out that chefs don't make anything at all, and they get worked into the ground. And I'm a very honest person with myself. The lifestyle that I want to have, that wasn't going to afford it. So I'm like, I can't do this. So that's why I pivoted into tech, which I'm glad that I did. Right. I can still cook for my family and friends, but now the ability to take care of myself and my family isn't reliant on how well I can make food, which is very nice. So yeah, so you said you work at Zendesk now, Jen. So what exactly is Zendesk?
Yeah, so we do like customer relationship software. I am from Wisconsin originally. I'm currently in Michigan, but the example that I always give to my parents is, say you are like, I don't know how the sizing is on this Packers jersey. When you're on the website and you pull up that little chat bubble, that's us.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We make chat software, support software, phone and voice software, anything where you can relate to your customers a little easier and better.
Okay. So how does threat intelligence fit exactly into Zendesk and what they do specifically for your role?
Right? That the realm of threat intelligence is so interesting, and the fact that we are B2B, making us like a business to business. We have customers in healthcare, finance, government. And so we are a target. There's a pretty big target on ticketing software and support software's back because we have access to our crypto customers and their tickets if they're engaging with their end users that are like, oh, I have questions about my crypto wallet. Here it is. It's like, so threat intelligence and kind of how it ties into Zendesk specifically is we're looking at all angles, financially motivated actors, politically motivated actors, even just like script kiddies that want to cause chaos. If we are the ticketing system for a political party, they might want to deface their support page on election day. So we are truly trying to stay ahead of any actor that potentially has a motivation that could impact our customers, which is a lot.
Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. I can see how if people would put in a lot of like private information stuff, they'll chat bubbles, right? Especially like I guess, tech or security savvy people, right? And you're able to compromise that. You get access towards all of that, which can be very dangerous.
Oh yeah.
So I can definitely
Like
imagine that.
people recently with Chat GPT that are giving away company secrets. It's like, no.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that could be a big issue. So I guess my next question would be, do you enjoy your job?
100%. Absolutely. Getting back to like the helping people aspect, you do so much reading and researching in threat intelligence and interfacing with other people because the whole goal is to share information. And so you get to meet other threat intelligence professionals. And the coolest part is it's like beyond camaraderie. To be good in threat intelligence means that you shared something that helped somebody. It's not, oh, I withheld this, so you got breached. It's very cool. There's not like a competitive edge to withholding information. It's all about being a good internet neighbor. And like the best feeling in the world of why I like my job is when you're investigating something, you're looking at something, and you might think everybody knows this. It's on Brian Krebs' website or something. And you share that, and that causes another company or another person to say, oh, and look at their logs and catch something. That is the coolest when you get to actually help somebody else or their org, and they say, thank you so much. It caused us to do this threat hunt and find X, Y, and Z IOC or breach. Yeah, that was a really long answer. I really like my job.
I'm very glad to hear that. I guess the interesting aspect when I did threat intelligence, I did it back, this was 4 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, back at Publix. Since when I was still learning about cybersecurity in general. I would say it's a more of a mature step for most organizations, right? Because it's more of a preventative measure. So if you're like a super small business, you probably won't have that implemented inside of your company, right? So like the aspect of threat intelligence is basically proactively going out and I'm gathering intelligence from different sources to try to proactively defend against an attack, specifically for your industry and your niche, right? Because attackers don't attack every single company across the board, right? They normally niche down towards like a certain area of the country and a certain type of business, right? A certain type of clientele. So an attacker or an APT group, right? Advanced Persistent Threat Group. If they like to target Walmart, right? They probably won't try to target, I don't know, Samsung, for example, right? But look at two different industries, they serve two different clientele, right? The way their systems are designed and set up are different, right? So the techniques and tactics that they would use will be completely different, right? So they're not able to specialize in one or the other, and they try to attack that, right? That means that you're going to probably have to have different sets of data that you're going to need to study and research to try to defend against it. So being able to gather intelligence on that and share that within the community is super important, right? Because most organizations can't do it all by themselves, right?
Right.
So having that shared community is super important, I would say.
Kenneth, I am so curious now because I know cyber threat intelligence and I know it from working at a SaaS company and securing SaaS software and those APTs. What was Publix like? Because that's a totally different customer base than I'm used to.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Publix was I didn't realize when I got there, I didn't realize like how much we do when I got into the corporate side. I literally just thought we sold groceries. I literally just thought that's all we do. But like if you go to anyone here has ever been to Lakeland, like the headquarters is in Lakeland. They have like a lot of centers. They own a lot of land within that area. There's like a Publix every quarter mile, basically. It's actually kind of insane. So yeah, Publix is on the East Coast. So it's based out of like the Southeast. If you ever lived in like Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, you shop at Publix basically. So they have their headquarters in Lakeland, right? It's in middle of Lakeland. It's called the Glass Palace. It's like 2 million square feet worth of office space. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah. So the cool thing about it is they have like a huge IT sector in the other side of Lakeland. I didn't realize like how much we do. So our biggest thing we probably spend the most money on is like marketing. So we have a lot of like data scientists, like research our customers, right? So protecting our storefronts is one of the biggest thing, right? Because there's a lot of attacks that normally happen inside of that. So think of people trying to compromise some of our payment processing systems, right? So a lot of times we would have to send out somebody from one of our staff to actually go towards a physical location to check on it, see what the issue is. And we would have security personnel, not specifically from my team, but from another team inside the Publix, like actually like monitor the stores, walk around, see if something's happening, see if someone's trying to compromise it, right? Because a lot of times those attackers would go to that store on a regular basis and try to take that information from the ATM or the payment process system for our stores, right? That was one thing that we tried to figure out. So one of the cool things I did was I worked on a project for BitJob. So that's like a bot transfer system that runs in the background for Windows. And I guess attackers were trying to use it to manipulate some of our systems, right, in the background. The hard part about it was because we're a huge grocery chain, like marketing is massively important to what we do. All of the Adobe products use BitJob, so we can't turn it off. That's not acceptable. That's what they told me straight up. Like get to work around it. It is what it is, right? So I worked with our our red team to find a way to kind of like mock a scenario where it happened. So I'm able to create a rule inside of it.
nice.
So that was a hard process because again, we just can't turn it off, right? We kind of have to watch out for certain switches or certain commands that they use that most users would never use, and we had to detect on that. And then I had to present that in front of my CEO and CFO when I was like 21.
The CEO of Publix?
Yeah.
Oh, casual.
Todd Jones.
Oh my goodness.
He's like the godfather of Lakeland, basically.
Ooh.
Everyone like kissed his ass so much. It was the funniest thing when I was there. I remember this little side note. So we had like a lunch with them, right? So all the interns got to meet with them. And I guess at the end of the session, he had to go fly out to Atlanta, right, for conference for us. So they're like getting a private jet ready and stuff like that. They're about to take him away. And one of the, I guess, assistants were like, Mr. Jones, your flight's about to leave. Time to go. He's like, one more question. Like, yeah, of course, yeah. One more question, of course. Whatever you want. Like they kissed up to his ass so much. And then he got finished eating his food, right? So he could take his tray away. And they're like, Mr. Jones, I'll take your tray away. He's like, I got it. I'm like, just a tray. He's like, oh yeah, sure thing. Yeah, whatever you want, sir, whatever you want. It was so funny. They're like yes man him to death. It was the funniest thing ever.
I guess at that point, it was what probably a private plane. They probably can be like,
yeah,
it's
I think it's like a charter or private plane that he's flying on.
Yeah.
I mean, cool. It's like that family has, think of it like the Waltons in like Benton, Arkansas. They have like that much power inside of Lakeland. So a lot of the kids and a lot of the family members are like multimillionaires and they get like $100,000 in allowances. They lived like close to where I lived. So they live in like a completely different world than where we did. But off topic. But yeah, that's like threat intelligence at Publix. So we did a lot of marketing. We had to protect against it basically.
That's so interesting. We actually just started some conversations because we have a separate physical security team. And they deal with all of our physical security at each of our offices. And they were like, we kind of do what you do. Let's work together. And I was like, yes, absolutely. Like, why would we buy two tools for more money? Like, let's consolidate efforts here. Let's collaborate. Absolutely. So I'll probably pick your brain more about that.
Of course, I'm always available. So the next question would be, what is like a normal day in, day out job? I look for you normally.
Yeah, great question. Because right now, I would say my average day is not totally average for threat intelligence, but it is necessary. So, I mean, to start with what all we talked about, really cool stuff. You get to do cool threat intelligence stuff. Quick, service announcement. Make sure before you do any of this cool stuff, you talk to your legal teams. Cool, like actor personas, being on the dark web and being in Telegram channels. Super cool. My day to day right now is going through and choosing a threat intelligence platform. So we have looked at several different ones and we ran through methodical tests on each one. So, okay, I can upload a document and it parsed the indicators. So, not a super glamorous day to day right now, but important foundational step of getting that tool kind of on board. Because otherwise, my day to day is a ton of random RSS feeds, or like I have some scripts set up that will alert on certain keywords for open source things like Brian Krebs or Hacker News. And without this kind of central chip or threat intelligence platform, we're like, okay, we think these IOCs are high fidelity because it's in this article, and let's kind of bump them up against our infrastructure. Okay, we kind of see things, but where are we going to put that? Whereas with this threat intelligence platform, those will be automatically ingested, given a fidelity rate based on source and a few other things, and then automatically bumped up against our infrastructure. So that way we can automate more high fidelity detections. So right now, a little bit of a weird day, but I would say like an average day to day for a threat intelligence, either analyst or engineer, would be a lot of, I'd probably model it around the threat intelligence lifecycle. So collection and planning, you will get requests for information from different teams. And they'll say, hey, like a new CISO, what should we be worried about? What should keep me up at night? That's often a question like C staff will ask, like what threat actors are targeting us. And in that planning stage of your day, which I go through this a lot with just different intelligence products, you lay out kind of a template that you agree on with your stakeholders. All right, so here's the question. What do we need in order to answer it? What logs do we need in order to answer it? When's the due date? Who's the audience? And then you show it to the stakeholder and say, we agree upon this, yes? And then they say yes. Then you go to your collection, which is all of your sources. And you're noting, okay, I have these logs to pull from, or I have these sources. I don't have these sources. And so you either have to get them or make sure you note them. So that way when you're delivering this intelligence, you're like, yo, this is what I saw, but full transparency, like these are the limitations. Gather all that collection, go through analysis of it. So that's where you're either threat hunting or looking through various logs, whatever the request is, kind of fulfill that requirement, doing analysis on the collection. And then you're actually writing all of that. And then you're writing or presenting or whatever format you've agreed upon, because sometimes it's via a non-recorded channel. Sometimes it's via a long white paper. So then you're putting that together, all to be disseminated to the appropriate channels. And then the final stage is feedback. And so I am in like various stages of the life cycle every day. Like I'm currently getting feedback on my latest production. And like, great, I could have answered this better. You were looking for more in depth here. And then that drives the next direction in planning. So average day just kind of goes through cycles, and then you get pulled into incidents and asked to enrich information there, or you're looking at past breaches and making sure they don't happen to you.
I'm curious as to what is the hardest part about that for your job and that job sequence. I have an idea, but I want to hear what you say first.
So I would say the hardest part for me is feeling like I'm behind. I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. If I read something from an open source, I'm like, I didn't know that. Of course you didn't know that. You're not in every APT Telegram channel. Like, that's the hardest for me personally. I think that's what first comes to mind, but I'm curious what you were thinking.
I was gonna say probably getting buy-in from the executives. In my opinion, that's the hardest part about my job a lot of the times. A lot of times they may not fully understand what you're trying to do, and they may not really care, right?
Right.
Again, going back towards, you've been in a lot of our sessions, like being able to explain it from like a business perspective is super important. If you can't talk dollar and cents all the time, they're not really gonna care what you're saying. So that's probably the hardest part of my job, is getting that buy-in from management level or senior executives.
Yes, 100%. The trying to show, and that's trying to show value is a big part of our day-to-day right now too, because we are a small but mighty, somewhat new team as we're building. My train's going by, sorry. Is getting buy-in from those executives and trying to show our value to them with translating the tactical nitty-gritty intelligence, the operational intelligence like TTPs, all the way up to their strategic, and being like, here's why we need headcount, here's why we need budget, and doing something that you do really well, Kenneth, which is translate that nitty-gritty to like strategic executive.
Yeah, that's one of the things you try to stress here at UCA. I guess everyone, I think, thinks all our jobs is technical. I guess we code away in the keyboard or something, which I don't do that every single day. A lot of times it's literally just presenting and trying to get my point across. I think that's important, like in any technical job, honestly, especially when you get ahead. If nobody knows what you're doing, they don't really understand. It doesn't really matter what technical thing you build out. Nobody wants to purchase or buy it or set it up. It's not going to matter. So being able to always translate that cyber talking to business language is insanely important.
The thing you just brought to mind too is often I've heard that it's difficult and to get your legals buy-in from them to be able to share information, and you have to translate what you do to legal, who rightfully is like, do not share our information. Do not do that. And I'm like, you are completely right. Here is why it's going to be beneficial for our company. And like you said, if you can't translate that to the stakeholders in order to progress your program, it's going to be really hard.
And then when something goes wrong, you'll be the scapegoat and first to go. That's normally how it works in cyber.
I really hope not. I really hope not.
But yeah, that's one of the things I think people need to improve upon, especially a lot of the soft skills. I think get glossed over, but they're very important, honestly. I can teach anybody any technical skill, specifically like for SIM and SOAR, but I can't teach you not to be an a-hole towards your client, right? You either have those developed skills or you don't. I can't help you with that.
That's it's funny you say that, because shout out to Dwight on the call. Dwight is my mentor, and he was even saying today too, you got to highlight that sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's soft skills, it's not all super cool hacker stuff, but it is sometimes. But there's a lot of paperwork.
There really is. It sucks so much. I hate paperwork, but it's a part of my job, so let's check for taking cash, and so I won't complain too much.
The cool paperwork I'm doing right now, it goes hand in hand, is getting all of my expenses in for DEF CON this year. So if anybody's going, Let me know, and I'm there for a day that overlaps with Black Hat too. So hit me up.
Cool. I'll actually see you there then, Jen. We'll touch base.
Yes, please. I'm so excited.
The 1 year I don't decide to go, it's when everybody's gonna go there.
I know, Kenneth, you should have went. You should have came.
Well, my company's not gonna pay for it this year, so I'm just gonna go to Afrotech probably.
Nice. Yeah,
Oh.
that is part of the cool paperwork that we get to do.
Good, good. So my next question would be to you. So what would you give, or what would you tell somebody that wants to go down this path as you for threat intelligence? Like what resources or what knowledge should they know and understand?
Good question. Do it. That's number one. Do it. This job is really, really cool. Please pursue it. We need more cool people and threat intelligence analysts and engineers. I would say if somebody wants to go down this path, like you said, Kenneth, it is a little bit more of a bigger company would have a threat intelligence team versus like startups might, security-minded startups might, but a lot of times you grow from like a SOC into threat intelligence. But if you are like, I want to get into threat intelligence, there are so many free resources. Cybrary, Cybrary, has a ton of free resources where you can start to learn threat intelligence. Also, if you're brand new, like to the world of threat intelligence, you can make, and this is something I've done, you can make flashcards of actors. So that way you can speak to, okay, this actor, APT 28 is actually, I believe, Fancy Bear. What are their motivations? What are their TTPs? Who do they target? And being able to know that and speak to that, I think it goes a really long way, especially when I've interviewed for threat intelligence positions. That's always something they ask. And start writing. I would say start writing as much as you can. Start a Medium blog and write about cool things you're learning. And then you can point to, hey, I shared this information. I thought it was really cool. I formed an opinion on I like the diamond model better than cyber kill chain. So I wrote an article about it. Like that is so cool. And forming those opinions and putting them out there is like threat intelligence 101. It is fantastic and foundational. I'd say if you have a little more experience in like the IT security world, you can start looking at like a WASP top 10 risks and understanding those and how to exploit them, or MITRE attack. That's something I do a lot of, which is looking at other people's breaches and then mapping it to this matrix, the MITRE attack framework, adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. So that way you can say, hey, I just mapped the LastPass breach and they were breached via, actually, I don't know, I'll use a fictitious breach. Maybe they're breached via like removable hardware. Here's what I would do to ensure endpoints are managed better. Like just start diving in and reach out to people, reach out to me. Kenneth, I hope I'm not telling you, reach out to you.
No, you're good, you're good.
And just look on LinkedIn, threat intelligence, and talk to me, talk to those people. The whole point is sharing and bringing people into the fold. So yeah, free resources, looking at like MITRE, looking at APTs, CrowdStrike does a really good job of naming and putting cool pictures to APTs. And yeah, reach out to people.
Yeah, I would definitely highlight all of the above. I think those are great steps to get started. And the biggest thing is just getting started right.
What else would you say?
I would say once you get towards a certain level, it's for most people, find somebody to be your mentor. If you have to pay them, that's fine, right? Just make sure they're actually who they say they are, right? Make sure they have the career that you want to have, right? And if you trust them, then whatever you're paying them probably is enough, honestly. That's what I found out for how quickly I was able to move up. For what I had to pay you was insignificant in the long run. So finding someone that you trust that really has your best interests at heart is super important. That's one of the things I would suggest towards people. Because for me, like time is my most valuable resource. I can always make more money, but I can't ever get my time back. So if I can pay somebody, I don't know, $10,000, let's use that number, right? And they can shrink the time period from 3 years, from like 6 years to 3 years. I get 3 years of my life back, basically. And I'm making a good amount of money so I get to do what I want to do, then that's invaluable to me, right? The time is the most important thing to me. So don't wait. What was it saying? The best time to start is now. The second best time, or the best time to start was yesterday, and the best time, the second best time to start is now, right? So if you want to start now, and start on that path and start to reach out towards people.
Yes. Oh, such a good point. My biggest fear is always everybody already knows this in threat intelligence. Everybody probably already knows what I'm looking at, and it's just not the case. Just dive in, like you said, like best time to start is today. If everybody already knows what you are sharing, okay, there might be one person that doesn't. Go for it. Yeah, start today. Reach out to us.
Absolutely. So to piggyback off of that, I know you told me that you use Splunk as your SIM platform, I believe. But what is your favorite SIM platform based on your experience?
I would say, so I'm currently learning X-Beam. Don't quiz me on it. I don't know much yet. But I would say I'm most familiar with Splunk. I love Splunk. It's super easy to integrate with other tools. The fact that you can kind of go meta and create detections around your log ingestion, so you know if like a parser or like a forwarder is broken. I think that's phenomenal. You can visualize and make metrics so easily in Splunk, which is great for threat intelligence to be able to say, hey, these detections created false positives and we contributed to them. Like, we're useful. I swear. Yeah, I would say Splunk I'm most familiar with. So probably makes it my favorite. What about you?
I would say Splunk as well. It's made me a lot of money in a short amount of time. So I'm always going to be I'm going to be honest, it has. So I'm always going to have a special place for it in my heart. My least favorite is QRadar. I think that's utter trash, honestly. I don't care if anybody says, I don't like it. It's slow, it's old, it's outdated. The support for it is absolute garbage. Absolute.
I've never used it, but it's interesting you say that too, because I mean, we had like weekly syncs with support and people at Splunk. They're fantastic.
It's for me, IBM, I used it on my old job. It was very slow. Support wasn't great for it. It took months to get like a small issue fixed. I'm like, we're paying you like $1 million to do this. Why are you taking so long to get fixed? I remember I was on a call with like people from Taiwan, like at 4 a.m. in the morning, and they were yelling at me like in Mandarin. Oh my God, I don't know what you guys are saying. I don't know what's going on. I was on the call for like 2 hours. I fell back to sleep after that. I'm like, I just wasted 2 hours of my life. So it's just like, especially for like the visualization portion of it, it's like so outdated. The visualizations look like a 5-year-old made it. It's like really, it's just, you have to see it. You have to use it to understand. It's just not good. But the two new ones that I've been diving a little more deep into is Microsoft Sentinel and then log scale from Humio, or log scale from Falcon. CrowdStrike,
cool.
actually, or
What do you
Falcon
think?
log scale. So initially it was called Humio. Humio was like a Scandinavian SIM log management company, but CrowdStrike wanted to compete with like Splunk and the other big boys. So they bought it out and they renamed it log scale. So they're trying to directly integrate it inside of their entire ecosystem platform. So they're trying to make it directly integrated with like if you have like CrowdStrike Falcon, right? To make it more of a competitive offering. It's very, very similar to Splunk. So if you understand
Okay.
SPL, you should be able to understand I think it's called LQL, log, like log scale querying language, because people are very uncreative. So that's what they named it. I think it's mainly on the cloud, but they do have an on-prem version for some customers. It's a pretty cool platform. I like it a lot. So we'll see
Yeah, I
how it
mean,
goes.
like, any platform where I can easily see collection. So I can do, look at what indexes we have. And if I need AWS logs, specifically like guard duty logs or something, and I can quickly be like, index equals guard duty. And if nothing pops up, I'm like, okay, well, gotta go find them.
They don't. They're not called indexes and logs. I forget what they're called. They're called something else. Everyone wants to change it up, which makes it confusing. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you can tell I'm most familiar with Splunk. I'm like, indexes.
Yeah. That's the same with me. And the last question for these set of questions would be, I think we talked about it, but you were my first call. Do you use a password manager?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I do. I have a complicated answer for this, and I feel like you're gonna judge me.
Why is it complicated? Tell me.
So I do not have the time to move my passwords off of LastPass.
You use LastPass?
I do.
Jen, you're like a threat
I
intelligent.
do. I know.
That's
That
disappointing.
is what, as a company, I think we used 1Password, and then we migrated to LastPass. So then I personally started using LastPass, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I need to migrate these. And I know after the last call, we had talked about
Dashlane.
Dashlane and browsers, and how browser password management has come a long way, but still probably isn't quite where dedicated managers are. And I just thought that was really interesting and something I dove into. Thanks to your prompting.
Yeah, it's the reason I use Dashlane because I can use it across all my devices. It's very intuitive, it's simple to use, it's not complicated, and it's free, right? It's like a free version. So there's really no excuse not to have a password manager, in my opinion. To my knowledge, they never had like a major security incident, which is a lot more than others can say, right? So
Right.
part of the reason why I trust them a lot. And for the one version I use, I have like their premium version, so I think it's like $5 a month, which is nothing basically. And for me, another thing is it's probably one of the easiest and best ways to protect yourself and increase your security posture, right? Because password credential stealing is probably one of the biggest things that attackers can use to try to get your stuff right. It's like the easiest way. So having a password manager and having the centralized source, you don't have to, which I did. I wrote everything on a piece of paper. Every time I forgot my password, I had to walk away to my back room and get it, which was a pain in the ass. Which I hated. It took so much of my time. So that's why I stopped doing it. And that's why I just got Dashlane.
That is 100% the way to do it. And I think you and I have talked about too, like, I adore my parents. I love them so much, but they have a password notebook. And I try so hard to be like, this will make your life easier getting a password manager. It'll just be right there. Like, I'm a security professional. I'll even set you up against my better judgment with autofill. Like, you can do this, and it just the notebook. They're all about the notebook.
So wait a second. So do you carry the notebook whenever they travel too? Is that?
They sure do.
That's a huge. So someone sold that basically. They have everything.
Yep, that's their life, and I'm like, I try. I have them on Firefox, if that counts for anything.
Well, that's a start at least.
Exactly. I was like, okay, getting there. Baby steps.
Well, I have one more large overarching question for you, then we'll take questions. So you've been helping us at ECA for what, the past, I want to say, what, 5 months or so?
That's right.
What has been your experience so far with us? What do you like about it?
first of all, yourself and Courtney, let's start there. You're both wonderful. Everybody at ECA has been fantastic to work with, and that speaks to how incredible a time I think your students also have, because you're easy to work with. You're super accommodating. When I'm like, yo, I'm running late or having technical difficulties, which sometimes I do. And as a panel judge on the capstone projects, I was blown away. I was blown away. I got to sit on a panel for a student's first capstone. And at that point, they have gone through how many weeks?
I think that was about 5 weeks.
5 weeks. 5 weeks, and they presented an entire business use case to like a C staff. And for me, I came in trying to be, you know, that CISO strategic C-level vision. But my true background is cybersecurity. And the fact that they came forward with metrics and use cases that were not cybersecurity, that were sales. You can visualize using these logs so that way you can pass them on and up the sales chain. I was like, damn. So my experience with ECA has been truly blown away from what I've seen in just a very short period of time, what you teach people in how to use a SIM and how well that translates into the real world.
From your experience, how would you say we compare to other people that try to do this or other services like other boot camps, for example?
Yeah, I have tried other training, and it's generally it's self-driven. And so when you have a question, you don't get a lot of support, which has been frustrating, or you do the training and they say, oh, you don't have that level 4 support even. You're like, but I have a question. Like, what? So comparison wise, I mean, there's no comparison. Being able to actually interface with someone who has been there and used the product and has used multiple products, so you can answer from a high level, like what a SIM should do, I think is completely invaluable compared to others.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, Jen. It's been
Absolutely.
a very awesome process to have you on board and with the other judges. Yeah, so anybody that's interested about joining us, ask me, you can ask Jen. She sits in her capstone. She'll be sitting on our next capstone, June 21st, I believe. So she'll be judging the first one for this student. So we're very excited for it. Again, if you have any questions or concerns at all, just feel free to reach out towards us. We'll do our best to help you out. But that's it for this session. I'm going to end the recording, then we'll take questions afterwards.